Across the country, ordinary Americans from all walks of life are taking whatever measures necessary to prepare.
My family is preparing for a biological terrorist attack. For the New Madrid earthquake.
For a series of F5 tornadoes.
And protect themselves.
Watch it, Cam. Push him away, push him away. Stop right there!
From what they perceive as the fast-approaching end of the world as we know it.
Dad!
Leave it alone!
Next, we go inside the lives of 3 committed preppers who have devised extensive plans.
Build a fire under a cast iron pot and cook yourself.
Gone to great lengths.
You put it right in the pig's head.
And made huge personal sacrifices to ensure their very survival.
Oh my gosh, there's totally a rat.
The experts will assess their preps to see if they have what it takes.
I can't breathe. Get it up, I can't get it up.
To survive.
Hatfield!
Oh!
This is Doomsday Preppers.
I come from a pretty interesting family line. The family's been in these parts of the mountains and valleys for a couple hundred years. They cut their way through the wilderness and they hacked out their homesteads. It was a very different world back then. They had to defend themselves. They had troubles with neighbors. They never knew when they went to bed at night if somebody was going to come in the middle of the night and attack the cabins. So everybody was always on guard and slept with their guns beside their bed and spent the day with their guns on their hips. I am descended from Devil Anse Hatfield, the leader of the Hatfield clan during the Hatfield and McCoy feuds. They were survivors. I am preparing for chaos triggered by an EMP attack due to World War III.
Hatfield!
McCoy!
I think that we are setting the stages worldwide for World War III. There's a lot of anger towards Western countries from the Mideast. And my fear is that somebody will shoot a nuclear warhead our direction.
Because Frida is deep in the woods of Virginia, she is less concerned about being caught inside a nuclear blast radius or fallout zone. Her fears stem from one possible outcome of a nuclear detonation, an electromagnetic pulse that could knock out power across the country.
There would be no communications, no radios, no television satellites working. So there would be a very small amount of information coming through. And when the food has run out at the stores, when the medicines have run out, and people have hungry children, they're gonna go looking for food. Then they're gonna wanna come to those of us who have prepared, and they're going to want our preparations. And I'm not gonna give them up.
For more than a century now, the Hatfields and McCoys have known relative peace. But now this Hatfield is preparing for battle once again.
I feel very safe and comfortable with Frida by my side in any type of doomsday scenario. She won't back down. She's a Hatfield. She will not back down.
I have a shotgun and I have a 9mm handgun.
Frida isn't stockpiling more weapons because she fears that if World War III erupts, the country will be subjected to martial law.
If martial law is enacted, then guns become illegal unless you are from the military or the police. So they would confiscate them.
But if the authorities come for her weapons, Frida doesn't plan to be left defenseless. She's turned to her boyfriend Mike and his mechanical skills to invent new weapons from scavenged materials disguised as used parts.
We have throwing stars that Mike has actually made. They are made of steel and you just toss them. All right, show us how to do it.
The throwing stars are for self-defense. If they decide to come in and take our guns and ammunition, I've got other means of defending what we have here.
Today, they're teaching Frida's son, Matt, how to handle their unconventional arsenal.
I notice how you hold them like that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of hold them like that and have my middle finger right there.
That's fine. I mean, any way that's comfortable for you.
I'll try it like that.
Try holding this a little straighter up straight up and down. Yeah.
Good. I like to imagine that the target is actually a person standing there.
Got him in the shin, baby. Hit him in the face.
Oh!
I got another recommendation. If all else fails and you still have one of these left, it's a weapon in hand, and you can use it going forward, backwards, stab. Any way you swing this thing at somebody, they're gonna get hurt.
If World War III and martial law come to Virginia, Frida fears she and Mike will once again have to live like her outlaw ancestors, hidden, isolated, and relying on no one but themselves to survive. Her first concern is creating a completely self-sufficient food supply. Survival experts recommend having a food plan with 3 different elements: pre-stored food, canned food, and a resupply plan.
Hey, girls. Louise. Bark, 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 bark. In a doomsday scenario, the chickens are going to be one of our best resources. For one, obviously a renewable food source. But beyond that, we can use the eggs for bartering material. Somebody else may have something that we need, and we'll be happy to trade them eggs for that.
Should her livestock run out or become contaminated by radiation from a nuclear war, Frida's also continuing a tradition that kept her Hatfield ancestors alive through the harsh Virginia winters.
Preserving food, canning, something that's been passed down for generations. I've got all kinds of meats down here. Pulled beef. We have roast beef, some chili. We have canned bacon. If we have no electricity, the refrigerator's not gonna run. So by canning, it's just like opening up a can of soup. All I have to do is heat and serve.
Frida's concerned, however, that cooking food after doomsday might bring unwanted attention.
If the grid goes down, you don't necessarily always want to have fire blazing in your yard, because as soon as the smoke rises, that tells people where you are.
So today, Frida's testing a solar oven that Mike built to ensure they can remain both hidden and well-fed.
We did quite a bit of research to figure out how to do this. But basically what this is designed to do is to be able to cook with the sunlight instead of using electricity or power.
Mike built his solar oven with just $15 of wood and 2 pieces of glass. Sunlight penetrates the box through the clear lid, and its black interior absorbs the heat.
We're gonna put a pig in this and see if we can cook it up today. Yo, boy, I feel heat. There is heat in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's working. It doesn't require any electricity. It heats up to about 250 degrees with the sun's power, and it leaves no smoke. So we'll have something that's an alternative cooking source that doesn't necessarily require you starting up a fire. So I'm thinking that we're gonna probably need to cook this all day, probably 6 hours, 7 hours. Hopefully we'll be having pig for dinner.
In addition to having a renewable food supply, Frida also has ample water sources.
We have a running mountain stream on the property, as well as a regular well, as well as an artesian well. So we have 3 sources of water all right here on the property.
But like her infamous ancestors, Frida believes in making the most of everything she has. So she puts her water to work in more ways than one. If a nuclear blast takes out the national power grid, Frida would have to live like the early Hatfields once did, without electricity. But Mike's latest invention uses an old bicycle wheel and a few scavenged parts to make sure their lights stay on if the power goes out.
This is basically We call it a water wheel. And it's going to go in the creek, and the water flowing down through the creek is going to turn these paddles. I'm going to go with a low revolution type generator. I can get it down to 20 revolutions per minute. It's going to charge our 4 batteries, and that battery pack will in turn charge the converter.
Today we are going to put the water wheel in the creek and see if we can get it going. Plug something in and see if it works. Okay, so we got it spinning, and so now I guess all we gotta do is hook the battery up, right?
Yep, we'll run some wires from the alternator up to our battery pack and get our batteries charged. All right, we're ready. Yep.
All right.
All right, baby, we're charging batteries. Let's get them hooked up and see if we can get this refrigerator fired up.
We got a light. Hey, it's working.
Right.
Awesome. We have power, yay. It is huge to be able to generate your own power. So it's really an accomplishment that we can create something like that just by using our minds and a few things that we've got.
If World War III erupts, Frida and Mike want to be able to defend their homestead, just like the Hatfields did. But the newest weapon in their arsenal is one that even their ancestors would have considered ancient history. Frida lives in rural Virginia with her boyfriend Mike, not far from where more than a century ago, her ancestors, the Hatfields, fought and died in an infamous blood feud with their neighbors, the McCoys.
Survivalism is part of my bloodline. The Hatfields were close to the land. They hunted. They built their homes by hand. They raised their own hogs. They raised their own chickens. Everybody stayed close and kept an eye out for each other and helping each other survive instead of just trying to do it on their own.
Like her legendary forebearers, Frida believes strongly in protecting her home from danger.
Nice, I love you, baby. Do you know now why I keep him? That is my sweetie. You put it right in the pig's head. Look at that. That is incredible, sweetie.
But Mike wants to extend the range of his defensive perimeter in case desperate survivors of the nuclear war they fear is coming ever attack their homestead. So he scavenged steel beams from old construction jobs and spent 2.5 days building a longer-range defensive weapon, the likes of which no Hatfield or McCoy ever used in battle.
I have a new perimeter defense weapon that I've been working on, and it's going to be very effective. I'm pretty excited about making some final adjustments to it.
The catapult could potentially help slow down marauders at a distance before they get in closer. Different things could be put at the end of the arm and thrown. We're about to do our first test launch with our catapult that we're calling the Intimidator to try to get it to throw throwing stars at a further distance.
Catapults are designed to hurl projectiles without the use of explosives. The arm of Mike's catapult is connected to a heavy counterweight held up by a wooden support. When Mike knocks the support away, the weight will fall, whip the arm up, and hopefully launch the throwing stars at the other end of the arm.
All right, you ready? I'm ready.
Let her rip.
Oh!
Almost.
Almost.
They only went about 20, 25 feet out there, but I didn't have all the weight up and And I just wanted to see how the whole apparatus reacted upon impact. We went about 150 or 200 feet. So gonna have to add twice the weight. We'll go for twice the weight and see what the result is on that. That's what we'll do.
Mike's hoping that by adding more cinder blocks to create a heavier counterweight, he can get the catapult to shoot even farther.
Whenever we set this off, we ought to do the Hatfield battle cry. Randall McCoy and Anderson Hatfield were buddies before the feud, and they were in the Civil War together. And they saw each other across the battlefield from each other, and Randall McCoy yelled, "Hatfield!" And Anderson yelled back, "McCoy!" We'll have Mike yell Hatfield, and then we'll yell McCoy whenever it launches.
All right.
Hatfield!
McCoy! Damn. Man, they didn't even, that's great.
Moving just a little bit to the right.
We didn't get quite the same distance out of him as we did last time, but that was awesome.
With or without their catapult, Frida has no doubt that she and Mike will be prepared for whatever Doomsday hurls at them. Because the ability to survive is something that has always run in the family.
The Hatfields have a long line of sticking together as a family unit or a clan. The Hatfields were survivors, and I know that if the day comes, our family today will also survive.
Frida and Mike, the experts at Practical Preppers, have reviewed your preps. You have outstanding food storage, a garden, orchard, and wild game to draw from. Your rural location is an asset, but you should stock up on medical supplies, since your remote homestead means limited access to outside help. To determine how long you could initially survive a catastrophe, Practical Preppers has scored your preps in 5 categories of 20 points each, for a total possible score of 100. You have excellent food storage and a resupply plan, 17 out of 20 points. Water. You rely too much on outdoor sources, 7 out of 20 points. Shelter, 12 out of 20 points. Security, 8 out of 20 points. Your homesteading skills give you 12 X-Factor points. Your total score is 56 out of 100. You have 7 months initial survival time.
I disagree with the assessment on the water, but I do agree that we need to work a little bit more on our medical preps.
Since the 1980s, the world's nuclear stockpile has decreased almost 80%. However, with more countries now in possession of nuclear weapons, the possibility of a limited nuclear exchange remains a concern. Many preppers have no problem with the idea of being confined underground. They bury their bunkers deep, planning to stay well below ground indefinitely. For Mike Adams, heading underground is central to his plan to survive Doomsday. But he doesn't have a bunker. He's going someplace most people would never want to be.
Okay, that is nasty.
George, we're at George.
Mike Adams spends his days behind the counter of his family's barbecue restaurant in Salem, Oregon, called Adams Rib. He can usually be found serving up pulled pork sandwiches, tri-tip, and pork butt. But his mind is often elsewhere. When he looks out from behind the counter and sees his wife, Jessica, brother, sister, and his mom and dad hard at work, he sees more than just the family business. He sees a potential prepper headquarters, and he wants his family's help to make it happen before it's too late.
I'm preparing for a terrorist occupation.
Every day, people are coming over the borders illegally. I believe that terrorists are sneaking in. living in our communities, and that they could get nuclear weapons in, they could get dirty bombs and strategically place those in places throughout the country. They would, in one strike, take over.
Mike fears that these sleeper cells will fan out across the country, seizing control of strategic cities and resources. And a terrorist takeover of the United States will begin.
After the major explosions, pretty much they would occupy buildings that are meaningful. They would occupy the White House, they would occupy the City Hall, the Capitol buildings, military bases. They would have the upper hand.
Adam's rib smokes around 800 pounds of meat each week. Mike's trying to learn as much as he can about the process from his father.
Good cold smoked meat could last a few weeks.
But not to help the family business. Mike and his wife, Jessica, fear the first move of a terrorist occupation would be to cut off the food supply.
They will shut down the stores or take all of the supplies for themselves so that we can't be strong as citizens to help defend our city.
Those look good.
But even if the rest of Salem is starving, Mike believes he and his family possess something that will make the terrorists give them special treatment.
People still need food, no matter whether they're terrorists or not. I believe that terrorists would still use our restaurant because we serve great food and people still need to eat. Basically, we would use our restaurant as a cover operation.
Mike plans to skim enough smoked meat off the top to feed his family throughout the terrorist occupation. He's already stockpiled about 40 pounds of meat at their family compound.
So do you want me to put the meat in there?
I think that looks about good.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
And because Salem averages 40 inches of precipitation per year, 12 inches more than the national average, Mike also believes they'll have plenty of water.
Go ahead and grab the ladder and set it up over that way. Here at the house, we have 450 gallons stored up. We have a system attached to the roof, the gutter system, that catches all the rainwater from the house.
Dirt and other debris can easily contaminate water collected by rain catchments. Mike wants his entire family to be as involved with his prepping as they are with the restaurant. So he insists his non-prepper brother, Matt, learns how to clean the filters.
So the strapping will hold it in place, and then the water will come down here and be filtered right in through there. Should be good. Let's grab that bucket of water and let's pour it down in there and see if we can get this running.
All right, here it comes.
Just a little bit. You don't need to pour the whole thing.
Did it work?
Basically, yeah. Drip into each of these holding containers right there, and then we should be able to pull out the water when we need it. Want to try some out? We have water.
Although Matt's willing to help his brother prep, not every member of the Addams family shares Mike's passion for prepping.
My sister Jen doesn't follow the same path as everybody else on the prepping. She tends to think it's more of a joke and it's not as serious.
But Mike refuses to give up on his sister. Today, he's hoping to jumpstart Jen's prepping by giving her a prepper essential, her own bug-out bag.
It sounds kind of crazy now, but if anything were to happen, if something does happen, and especially if we can't be there to help you, this will be able to, you'll be able to help yourself. This is your multi-tool. Got a basic sewing kit, compass. Hopefully you'll learn how to use a compass.
It just doesn't seem like anything would actually happen, and if it did, it's not like we're gonna be surviving it. So I just don't see a point. What else is in here?
You got a flashlight, duct tape, and then your basic first aid kit, and then your gas mask.
Seriously?
Yeah, serious. Do you know how to put on the gas mask at all? Have you
No.
taken it out?
No.
Looked at it?
Nope.
You want me to show you?
Not really. But okay.
Put it over your face.
My face?
Yeah.
I don't know how.
How's it feel?
I feel like I can't breathe.
It takes a little bit to get used to.
Get it off. I can't get it off. Now my face is gonna be all funny.
Yeah, it will.
I think I'm claustrophobic.
Unlike his sister, Mike's wife, Jessica, is on board with her husband's prepping plan. But there's one crucial prep that she literally cannot live without. To get it, Mike's preparing to turn himself into Salem's one-man underground resistance. And in Mike's plan, the only way to be the underground is to go underground.
Oh my gosh, there's totally a rat.
Mike and Jessica Adams are preparing for a day when terrorists attack and overrun America. But Jessica faces a potentially life-threatening complication that most preppers don't.
My wife was diagnosed with epilepsy about a month before we got married.
I had my first seizure when I was 18, and it was pretty scary for a while. My seizures are one of the worst that you can have. They're grand mal seizures. I'll just completely fall down. And my body pretty much kind of stiffens up, but then at the same time, it's also convulsing. Now that I'm on medication, my seizures have been controlled for a long time. I do believe that the terrorists would control the pharmacies and control many of the things, many of the companies even that make the pharmaceutical drugs. In the event of a very large seizure, I really could potentially die. So I never want to be without my medication. We have about a month's supply, and we're going to continue stocking up.
There is no natural treatment for epilepsy. But that hasn't stopped Mike and Jessica from growing something that they think could one day be the only thing keeping Jessica alive.
This is St. John's wort. We grow these just in case we can't get that medication. You can eat the leaves or grind them up into like a paste, or same with the flowers when they flower.
But if a terrorist occupation cuts off medical supplies, Mike isn't willing to risk Jessica's health relying on a plant alone.
We would definitely steal the medication if need be. I don't believe that it would be stealing per se, because I don't believe that the stores would be running like they run now.
Mike expects local pharmacies and hospitals to be under terrorist control following an invasion. So he's come up with a plan to steal the medicine Jessica needs out from under terrorist noses.
I've always loved watching films, and Red Dawn was a huge influence on my thought patterns of terrorists and terrorist attacks. I think that it's a good lesson for people to even think that, you know, what if this happens? What would I do in that scenario?
Mike believes the city of Salem has already built him the perfect prep to circumvent terrorist forces. One he thinks is just the thing for a one-man underground like him.
So I think if we take the sewer systems, we should be able to get in here. We don't want to be traveling above ground. I just don't think that'd be safe for us. I think it would be best to go underground so we're unnoticed.
Mike believes that by using the sewer system, he could move undetected and bypass enemy guards to access critical locations anywhere in town.
That is dark.
Yeah, this is kind of deep.
Careful, it's slick. So this is what a sewer system looks like.
I think this will work pretty good for getting around, don't you?
Yeah.
Salem sewers are part of a larger system that serves several local cities and spans 770 miles. Mike fears he could easily get lost and pop up in the middle of a terrorist force. So today, he and Jessica are trying to map out the best routes to places they think medical supplies will be found.
It's gotta be like halfway.
Yeah, we're a little more than halfway.
You think we're probably right about there?
Yeah, we're around there.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think we just got another mile or so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay. Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's totally a rat. Oh my gosh, right over there.
Okay, that is nasty.
After hours spent trudging through Salem's underground labyrinth, Mike and Jessica believe they've mapped out a route to the pharmacy.
I think we're about there.
Yeah.
But when Mike surfaces, he discovers he's on the wrong side of town.
Oh, man.
Mike realizes it could take weeks of trial and error to successfully map the sewer system.
All right, looks clear. Come on up.
But he won't be deterred.
I think the biggest misunderstanding that people have about prepping is the fact that you could do it little bits at a time. My advice to other Americans would be to start small and keep going and be prepared.
Mike and Jessica, the experts, practical preppers, believe your water storage is excellent, and with your catchment system, you should have enough to see you through even a long crisis. But you should look into building a better purification system.
Yeah, I agree.
Your food storage is also excellent. But if you suspect a terrorist force would put strict controls on meat distribution, you should also look into raising your own livestock. Practical Preppers has scored your preps in 5 categories of 20 points each. Food, 15 out of 20 points. Water, 14 out of 20 points. Shelter, 7 out of 20 points. Security, 6 out of 20 points. For using your restaurant as a food resupply source, you receive 10 X Factor points. Your total score is 52 out of 100. You have 5 months initial survival time.
I completely agree. We just started prepping, so I believe a little bit at a time helps, and eventually we'll get there.
According to the FBI, affiliates of Al-Qaeda are the top terrorism threat to the U.S. However, these regional terrorist groups are likely to be more focused on attacking Western interests in their areas than on occupying the U.S. Joe's wife and children used to have a home in town and everything their hearts desired. But he's taken it all away. Now, he insists they learn how to live without all the comforts of a modern life. Because if they don't, and Joe's right, holding on to the past could kill them all. If the lights go out and you don't know when they're coming back on, what would you do? If the technology you depended on every day suddenly stopped working, how would you survive? If the 21st century looked more like the 19th century, would you be able to handle it? Joe believes he could because he, his wife, and his children have already given up on modern living.
We're preparing for the loss of the electrical grid, which will cause a breakdown of society and change modern life as we know it.
A massive solar flare could take down the entire grid system, all the transformers, which would shut down gas stations, grocery stores, banks. Everything would be closed overnight. On that first day, would probably not be too crazy. And then that second day or third day is when everybody goes all poop. This ain't gonna be good. It would just get progressively worse as the food supply got lower and lower. I hope that all of our brothers and sisters would just come together and take care of each other, but I fear that would not be the case. I think there would be hoarding and lots of chaos. If I was to try to think about all the suffering that would happen, all the little ones that would suffer, I'd probably start crying.
Joe used to be a city boy, working as a floor installer in Kansas City, Missouri. But his fear of solar flares drove him to abandon full-time work and move 80 miles to the backwoods of Kansas. Now the nearest town has a population of only 350 people. The nearest power line is a mile away. And no power lines means no television, no email.
Email, what's that? I don't have a computer. I wouldn't know how to check an email if I got one.
Joe's not waiting for solar flares to take out the nation's power. He's trying to teach himself now how to keep his family alive completely off the grid and teach them how to go without. But he refuses to abandon 21st century technology altogether.
We want to do more than just survive in a crisis situation. We want to still be able to enjoy life. So for us, it's trying to find a happy medium of primitive and modern to where we use some of these tools that do make our life easier. I don't want to be reliant on any more technology than I have to.
Summer heat waves in Kansas regularly hit almost 90 degrees. To cool his house with a normal air conditioner would require more than 2,800 watts of power. Instead, Joe's doing it for 1% of that, using a concept that's been around for millennia.
The summers here in Kansas are extremely hot and humid, so air conditioning is a must if you want to be comfortable. We've lived without it, and it's miserable. These are geothermal earth tubes. The Earth's temperature is 55 to 60 degrees, so we bury these 4-inch PVC pipes at 6 to 8 feet deep in the ground to capture that cool temperature. The fan in the house that pulls the air from out here, and then when it comes into the house, it's 60 degrees.
Although Joe sees the sun as a menace that could potentially destroy the national power grid, he's also counting on it to keep his low-tech preps running. The fan for his AC is powered by 8 solar panels, which charge a battery bank that also powers all the limited technology Joe's holding onto for life off the grid.
We have about 480 watts worth of panel that comes to the house here. We have fridge, the freezer, the stereo, the lights, the fans, altogether 8 items.
Joe's willing to use technology, but not depend on it. When it comes to heat and hygiene, Joe's turned to a 19th century idea to recreate another staple of modern living they've left behind, a hot bath.
Bathing outdoors in a cast iron tub is a really awesome idea. You take an old cast iron tub, preferably one with claw feet. Cast iron tub is just like a great big cast iron pot. You dig a hole underneath it, you fill it with water, build a fire under it, and then once your bath is warm, you pull most of the fire out, but you can leave just a few coals, and you can take a hot bath that the water will stay warm for at least an hour, if not longer.
We make our own soap, goat milk, coconut oil, and lye.
We usually make 40 to 50 bars at a time, and the bars are 6 to 7 ounces apiece. Those bars of soap will last an entire year.
And it works for hair, body, laundry, dishes, everything. And you can see it lathers up great, smells great.
It is big enough for 2, but I'm,
Oh, yes, it is.
I don't look as good in my boxers as Joe.
Joe is beginning to get his family used to living with very little. But what they don't know is that living with little is just the first part of his survival plan. Now, he's going to push his kids even further to see if they can handle living with nothing. Living off the grid in rural Kansas, Joe and his family depend on Joe's inventive ways of mixing modern technology with primitive techniques to survive.
Oh, come on, F.A. Do you feel like a prepper horse, F.A.?
Without F.A., Joe would need 7 to 11 gallons of fuel per hour to tend his fields with a tractor. But in a post-apocalyptic world, Joe believes there would be no gas.
If they shut the gas pumps down, she'd still be going, because all she needs is grass. Grass instead of gas.
For a successful harvest, Joe's quarter-acre of wheat could need to be irrigated with up to 1,700 gallons of water a day. But Joe's not connected to a city water supply.
She was on a tadpole. First month.
I thought you were stopped.
So he dug an 8-foot deep hole in his backyard.
We dug a great big catchment up here by the house, a small pond slash big pool. And we just installed a solar pump in the bottom land, the bottom well, which never goes dry. And so it's direct fed off solar panels and pumps about 400 to 500 gallons a day.
I caught one!
All right. Bring it over. Let's see it. There it is.
No tractor for plowing means harvesting by hand as well.
Who needs a tractor, huh? One of the biggest prepper tools right here.
Joe plants wheat, in part because it's easy to grow almost anywhere in the U.S. and doesn't require a huge field. A typical family uses about a bushel a year, which can be grown in a 20 by 50 foot plot.
Oh, got it upside down. Grain heads up. Okay. There you go.
Joe stored enough food to last them at least 6 months. But he fears this could make their farm a target for desperate, violent people from blacked out cities if the grid goes down. So Joe wants his wife and daughters to get comfortable with the idea of having to leave it all behind.
If I had to leave the house, I would bring the goats. And actually, they would follow. They're like dogs. Goats are the ultimate survival animal. They are a long-term food supply. They produce milk, and they produce eventually meat. They can also eat just whatever they find. They'll eat and actually thrive on just what's out there in nature.
Come on, goat.
Today, Joe's taking his daughters and his goats deeper into the woods and farther from home than they've ever gone before to start getting them used to the idea of bugging out with nothing.
There's enough wild greens in the woods that you could have a salad 3 times a day and never hurt the woods. There's an endless supply of food.
Yeah, but
Look at this plant here, girls.
Today, as part of their bug-out drill, Joe's teaching his girls how to forage for the foods they'll need if desperate marauders drive them from their homestead.
There's food everywhere if you just know what to eat. Is there some lamb's quarters right there? Do you see any lamb's quarters in here, Josie?
Often mistaken for a garden weed, lamb's quarters is one of the most common wild edibles in North America.
Right
Good
there.
job.
They're good. They're so good, you're gonna get a bunch of them, aren't you?
If it came down to it, I feel pretty comfortable with going out and foraging, and I think that living the way we do, we are prepared, so if it happens, we'll be like, well, you know, this is what we've been preparing for, and it's not gonna be a shock to us.
The Native American model is to just leave, to just blend into the woods, to just fade away until the violence is past. I think the worst will happen, not just could, but it's just a matter of when.
I think we're prepared for the end. I think the end will be a new beginning. Yeah, you're a good girl, aren't you? Come on, goats.
Joe, the experts, practical preppers have assessed your preps. Your food resupply and preservation plan is excellent, but you should have more food stored for long-term use.
The longer it's stored, the more nutrient value it loses. So we like to maintain as fresh a food as possible.
Security is your weakest link. You lack the equipment and training to defend your property.
I don't want to put my life focus on killing people. We want to be different.
To determine how long you could initially survive a catastrophe, Practical Preppers has scored your preps in 5 categories of 20 points each. Food, 16 out of 20 points. Water, 19 out of 20 points. Shelter, 16 out of 20 points. Security, 6 out of 20 points. In addition, your foraging and homesteading skills give you 13 X-Factor points. Overall, you get 70 out of 100 points. You have 12 months initial survival time.
I think we could go longer. And weak security, come on.
While estimates on the odds of a monster solar storm occurring in the next decade range from 6 to 12%, experts are looking into additional measures to protect the grid, and the majority of solar flares pose no threat to America's power infrastructure.